I'm Scoot, and welcome to the SOTA Daily Hit on the Scoot on the Air YouTube channel. Man, we got a lot to talk about today. WTF? I mean, how did the Cowboys beat the Saints last night on Thursday Night Football? Well, I talked about this a lot yesterday, and it's quite obvious to me why this happened. Also coming up, I want to talk a little bit about an interview that I've got coming up. We're scheduled to do it tonight, and it should launch on the SOTA YouTube channel Monday morning. It's an interview with a dancer at a gentleman's club, one of the upscale gentlemen's clubs in downtown New Orleans in the French Quarter. And the conversation will be about her business, the misunderstanding about her business, the misunderstandings about people who strip for a living, and also the crusade to raise the age of strippers, the minimum age, from 18 to 21 here in Louisiana. We'll get into all of that in just a moment, but that's going to be a good interview, and that's going to be coming up. That'll be one of our full interview shows coming up on Monday on our channel. And again, we don't have signage yet, but we are getting signage. In the meantime, this is the best sign that we have. It's the SOTA Daily Hit. I'm Scoot, and please subscribe to our channel. We need you to subscribe, and we need you to share with others. And if you want to comment, there's a place to comment as well. Okay, first of all, President Trump is in a lot of trouble. I mean, he really is. I don't know whether you can believe the reports or not, but there are reports that he's rattled and freaking out because his closest friend, his closest attorney, Michael Cohen, who he praised during and after the campaign as the guy that he goes to, had just said incredibly nice things about Michael Cohen. Well, suddenly all that's over because Michael Cohen has testified in court that he lied. And in lying to Congress, he said that he and Trump did not have anything to do with Russia during the campaign, and apparently that is not the case. So what else does this guy know? So apparently Trump is very distracted because this deals with Trump and his kids. So we'll continue to follow that story. Okay, so, yesterday I talked about this, and I talked about this on my radio show. I do a talk show on WWL, 870 AM, 105.3 FM, WWL.com. I'm coming to you from my apartment in downtown New Orleans. And you can find the radio show by going to the app radio.com, download the app, type in WWL, and I'm on 1 to 4 every afternoon, New Orleans time. So I hope you'll join me. And please feel free to call the show. Please feel free to send your text, and we give out those numbers during the show. But it's quite a lively show. Not everybody agrees with me, which I think is one of the things that makes it fun. I got a lot of criticism yesterday because I said, hey, you know what? The Saints have got to win the battle of emotion against the Cowboys. And I was criticized by people who were saying things like, the Saints have won 10 in a row. The Saints are 10-1. The Saints don't have to make a statement. They're going to go in and blow out the Cowboys. And when you match up the talent of the two teams, the Saints are much more talented than the Dallas Cowboys. But from the beginning, I was concerned about the emotional factor. Archie Manning once said that football is played between the ears, meaning that it is emotion. All the teams practice, all the teams have meetings, all the teams strategize and watch films of the other teams. Sometimes it just comes down to raw emotion. And I knew the Cowboys, having won 3 in a row, I knew they were going to go into that game with a lot of emotion. Hometown crowd, AT&T Stadium, Jerry World, on the big national platform of Thursday Night Football. And Jerry Jones, the owner, told the guys, treat this game like it is the Super Bowl, and they did. And they took it to the Saints. The Saints ended the first half behind 13-0. First time the Saints have been shut out. And the Saints have the most potent offense in the NFL? And have for a long time, have one of the most potent offenses in the NFL? The Saints were shut out in the first half last night for the first time in 72 consecutive games. Breeze was off. Breeze was rattled. The offensive line didn't do its job. In fact, we were thinking about nicknames for the offensive line. Look, this is just a temporary joke about the offensive line right now, because I think the Saints are going to come back. But maybe we could nickname them the folding chairs, because last night was not good. Breeze was under pressure, and Breeze was rattled. And then there were some players like Kamara and Thomas who never dropped the ball. Ball went right through their hands. So what happened? The Saints lost the emotional battle. And you can take the statistics and match them up all you want. You can say there's this matchup and this matchup, and the Saints win these matchups. And statistically, the Saints win. That's all BS. Because the one thing that trumps it all is emotion. Remember the Miracle on Ice in 1980, the Winter Olympics? When a very young amateur, at the time we had college players representing the U.S. in hockey and in all sports. That's changed now. But we had amateur college players going up against the Soviet Union, the Russians. It was like the Russians' equivalent of an all-star NHL team, a professional NHL team going against college players. How do you think the U.S. won? Do you think they won because they matched up statistically against the Russians? No. They won because of emotion. And a lot of sports guys will stack up all the statistics and they'll totally forget about the emotional aspect of the game. Well, last night was a great example of what can happen when you don't pay attention to the emotional aspect of the game. Now, look, the Saints are 10-2. We still have control over our destiny. But for the Saints to have a chance to have home field advantage throughout the playoffs and to blow that would be a terrible thing. I don't think that's going to happen. And maybe this is a good thing. Sometimes we need a little humility in our lives to make us realize how hard we need to work. But this was predictable because I talked about it yesterday. It was predictable. And look, man, I hate that I was right. Now, I was wrong because yesterday I did say I think the Cowboys are going to come in emotional. I'm not sure the Saints are going to be as emotional, and they have to be to win. But I did think the Saints were going to come back and ultimately win the game. Well, they didn't. So I was wrong on that account. But if I figured out that emotion was going to be such a big part of this game, don't you think everybody would have figured that out as well? So this was preventable. How do you think the Chicago Bears won all those consistent championships? It was because of their coach, the Zen master, Phil Jackson. Do you know what Phil did with those guys? And you know why they called him the Zen master? Because it wasn't about the past. It wasn't about the future. It was about right now. And he convinced those players, I don't care if you won a championship last year. I don't care if you won 3 games in a row. I don't care what you did last night. The only thing that matters is right here and now. And that was something that was missing from the Saints last night. And that had to be an embarrassment for Sean Payton being on the national stage. Look, the Saints are 10-2. We're in great shape. But they shouldn't let this happen. And hopefully it won't happen again. All right, coming up tonight, I'm doing an interview with a dancer from one of the upscale gentlemen's clubs in the French Quarter of New Orleans. And there seems to be this new crusade. There was recently some raids by the New Orleans Police Department of some of the strip clubs downtown. And the raids were part of a crusade to cut down on sex trafficking. Well, the raids turned up 0 evidence in terms of sex trafficking. And not all the clubs were targeted, which makes me think that maybe some clubs were the favorite of some in high positions. I don't know, but I found that to be kind of curious. So this was done, these raids were done, and this crusade to raise the age from 18 to 21 is all part of this effort to fight sex trafficking, which I'm all for. This is a $32 billion a year business. And, you think about those who put people into sex trafficking and manage them. They're horrible people. But do you know who is equally as horrible? The people who create the market. The rich men who pay to have sex with underage girls. We seem to forget about those who are creating the market. Those are the really bad people. Yeah, the pimps are bad. The people who said all, yeah, they're bad too. But so are the rich men who pay for this. So anyway, I don't see how the crusade to fight sex trafficking, which is a bold crusade, I'm all for it. But I don't see how the strip clubs have anything to do with that. Now, obviously, there can be exceptions here and there. But the average age, and I've read this from multiple sources, multiple studies have been done. Do you know what the average age of a sex trafficker is? A person who's in sex trafficking? Do you know what the average age is? Between 12 and 14. These are not people working in strip clubs. Where do they get these people? These people are homeless. They're teenage runaways. They're addicted to drugs, or their parents were. They don't have a home. And so they're provided a life. Strip clubs are not a recruiting place for sex traffickers. And raising the minimum age from 18 to 21, that's a real good, feel-good thing to do for politicians. Look what we did. We raised the age. Really? You know, you can fight for this country when you're 18. Why the hell can't you go out and dance in this country? Why can't you decide to be a stripper? What they do is legal. It's legal here. It's legal in most places around the country. So why can't you make that decision? And this notion that these dancers all had bad relationships with their dads, they were all sexually abused, they're all on drugs, that's a myth. I know many of these girls. And they're smart. In fact, one of them graduated from like a prestigious public high school here in the New Orleans area. And I mean, this is a high school where you've got to be really, really smart. You've got to have a really high IQ to get in this high school. She's a dancer now. And she told me the other night that one day somebody asked her, well, if you're so smart, why are you doing this? She goes, I'm doing it because I'm smart. Because what they do is legal. And nobody has to go see it. But if you want to go see it, you can. And there are very strict rules about what goes on there. Look, there's drugs in that business. There's drugs in my business. There's drugs in your business. People around you do drugs. Who came up with this idea that, oh my God, some strippers do drugs, so the industry's bad? There are people that you work with that do drugs. There are people in your industry that do drugs. That's part of America. It's not a good part, but that's a reality. So I just sense maybe this new moral right movement growing in America. Not as big as it was back in the mid-'80s when Ronald Reagan was running for re-election. It was huge then and very powerful. I don't think it's that big yet, but I do sense that there is this attempt to tell other people how to lead their lives. And this idea of raising the stripping age from 18 to 21 to fight sex trafficking is absurd. If it made sense, I'd be all for it. But these girls are making an honest living. They are. It's legal. Many are raising families. Many are paying off student debt loans. So don't prejudge. And you'll find out more when we do this interview. And it should launch Monday morning right here on Scoot on the Air on YouTube. So that's why you need to subscribe so you'll get an alert. But it should be a really open conversation. And you'll learn more about that business, and you'll learn more about what I think is a political move to somehow attack stripping in the name of attacking sex trafficking when that's not really what's going on. So we'll talk about all of that. Have a great weekend, and we'll be back Monday. I'll also do this live on Monday, but we will also be launching that interview with the dancer on Monday. So again, I'm Scoot. Have a great weekend, and subscribe to the Scoot on the Air YouTube channel.